Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. All right. Well, I'm Vanessa. If you don't know who I am, I'm the youth pastor here. And so I get the honor of sharing the word today with you guys, and I get the honor of just talking to you about Jesus and sharing the word. And I'm used to speaking to a lot of teenagers, so this is, it's fun. It's different, but it's a good time. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. We're in the middle of our series, God on Film, right? And we're talking about, today's movie that we're talking about is King Arthur. Who has seen the new movie King Arthur? Last service, only one, and he had not good things to say about it, which I was very sad. I was like, anybody seen King Arthur? And he was like, and I was like, so? And it was nothing. He had nothing good to say. I saw terrible reviews about it, which was really sad because it looked so good. The previews looked fantastic. But I have not seen the movie King Arthur myself yet. So no one else has here? No one? Nope. All right. Saw the trailers? That's it. All right. That's what I saw. Okay. So, but we know the story of King Arthur. And if you don't know the story of King Arthur, I'm going to share it with you real quick so that we have an idea of kind of what we're talking about today. So Arthur was the firstborn son of King Uther Pendragon and the heir to the throne. When King Uther died, there was a great conflict over who should be the next king. Merlin used his magic to set a sword in a stone. Written on the sword in letters of gold were the words, "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone is the right-born king of all of England." Of course, all of the contenders for the throne took their turn at trying to draw the sword, but none of them could succeed. Arthur withdrew the sword for another to use in a tournament. Following this, he became king. So everyone else tried, no one made it, and then all of a sudden Arthur pulled it out, and he was the king, because that's what he was supposed to be. Arthur's base was a place called Camelot, where he built a strong castle. His knights met at a round table, and under the guidance of Merlin, Arthur had obtained a magical sword from the Lady of the Lake. This sword was called Excalibur, and with this weapon, he vanquished many foes. So that's King Arthur, okay? Cool guy, meant to be the king of England, and he pulled out the sword, and that was his destiny. That's what he was supposed to do. That was his purpose. He was supposed to be king. And so the story of King Arthur is a story about purpose, a story of what are we supposed to do in this thing called life. The definition of purpose is the reason for which something is done or created for, or which something exists. Okay, so our purpose is, why are we here? Why are we on this earth? Why are we on this world? So King Arthur's purpose was to become a king. Right? That was his purpose. And his purpose drove him to do so much more. His purpose drove him. And just like you and I, our purpose drives us to do more in the kingdom of God, right? Our purpose drives us to think and dream and think bigger. And a lot of us sometimes walk around life with no purpose, or we feel like maybe our purpose has been taken from us. And we have this saying of, you know what, I'm just living life until Jesus comes. Just hanging out, doing my thing. He's going to come back soon anyways. And we just live this life of mediocrity. And because we're just waiting. We're just waiting until Jesus meets us, right? We're just waiting for him to come and pick us up, and we're going to go to heaven. But God's not called us to live like that. He's called us to live a life of freedom and of purpose and of love and of commitment and just enthusiasm for something bigger than us. And then our purpose drives us closer to God. So in the Bible, there's a really cool story of a guy named Joseph. Okay, we're gonna talk about Joseph a little bit, and we're gonna go through a lot of scripture as we go through and kind of look at Joseph's life and the seasons he went through as he pursued his purpose. And so we're gonna start it off in Genesis chapter 37, starting in verse 5. So if you want to go there, go ahead, and then otherwise it's gonna be behind me on the screens, I believe. So now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us, or are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept this saying in mind. We're going to go to verse 16 now. So Joseph shared his dream, and then this is what happens when Joseph shared his dream. Very sad. So we're going to keep reading. "I am seeking my brothers," he said, and this is Joseph looking for his brothers at this point. Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock. And the man said, they have gone away, for I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, here comes the dreamer. Come now, let us kill him. And they let him kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Lost my plates, I'm sorry. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams. But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, let us not take his life. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands to restore him to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, and with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to the brothers, what profit is if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let his little hand not be laid upon him, for he is our brother, your own flesh. And his brothers listened to them. Then Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And then they took Joseph out of Egypt. So that's sad. Joseph had a rough day. Anybody have a bad day? Has anybody been sold into slavery? No. I don't think we beat Joseph on that one. Not at all. So have any of you looked at your life and thought, man, this is not what I envisioned or thought it was going to be? I feel like Joseph at that moment was thinking, well, this is it. That dream I had, well, gee, I don't know what you're talking about, Jesus, but this is it. Like, I'm gone. Like, I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do now. And so Joseph was probably not expecting this. He was expecting his dream, and then he was like, I'm going to be king. It's going to be great. They're going to bow to me. And then he gets sold into slavery. And that's terrible. So in life, one of the most important things to understand is God's purpose is irrevocable, no matter what your circumstance or season you're in, right? His purpose doesn't change because something bad happens, or because your life changes, or because you're in a different season. His purpose still stays the same for your life. And within our purpose, we have seasons that we go through that bring us to God's ultimate purpose, okay? Our seasons are not there for no reason. Our seasons are there to bring us closer to God and closer to the ultimate purpose that he has for our life. And we see in Joseph's life, he had this great calling and great vision, and it really just needed some time. It wasn't going to happen right then. And Joseph, I think, maybe thought it was going to happen, but he was a little boy. He was like the youngest of all of his brothers. He was not mature to handle. He could not become king. I feel like being king at that young would be terrible for him. And so he wouldn't be able to do a good job. So he had to mature. He wasn't ready. And guys, we're called to one thing in life, no matter what you do, no matter where you're at in life, no matter what your calling, no matter what your purpose, no matter what you're in your career, we're called to love Jesus Christ with all of our hearts. We're all called to that one sole purpose, no matter what. That is one purpose that we all have in common. And our first priority in our calling is our purpose to God. It's our season. So our first point is our seasons with God. And so if you go to Genesis 39, starting in verse 20, Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. And the keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. So Joseph now was in prison. After being sold into slavery, he now was in prison. So, still terrible, right? But Joseph knew that God had a plan, right? And so he's like, you know what? My first purpose is to God. And so he's in this prison, and God's giving him favor. God's giving him all these crazy things, even though he's in prison, and it's probably terrible and not fantastic. God's just giving him all this favor and all this love. And he's like, you know what? My focus is Jesus. My focus is God. And that's what I need to do right now. Because I can't think of the fact that one day I should be king, but I need to focus on what is now, and it's God. God is now. And so Joseph felt like he had a huge destiny, but he had all these setbacks, right? He had all these problems. And guys, in life, we're called firstly to have a relationship with Jesus before anything else, because that's the foundation. If you don't have that, you have nothing. That's going to get you to where you need to go. The relationship with God provides your greater context for all other relationships in your life. Okay, your relationship with God provides you a greater context for everything else. Okay, your relationship with God is the priority. Our first purpose is to Jesus. And if we don't get that right, we have no reason to look further. If we can't get that part right. And so Joseph was dealt a very, very bad hand, man. Terrible hand. I mean, I look at my life and think, man, my life did not suck as bad as Joseph's. Like, that's for sure. That was terrible. But he had a total faith and reliance in God, no matter his circumstance, no matter when he was in prison, no matter when he was in a pit, no matter when he was sold into slavery. Like, he had a faith and a reliance on God. And you might be in this room and you might feel called to be a missionary. Maybe that's your calling. Before you can be a missionary, you need to be a really good son or a daughter. You need to be a really good son or a daughter to Jesus. Before you can be the most fantastic mom in the world, you need to be a really good son and a daughter. Before you can live out your calling, you need to be really good at being a son or a daughter to God. Because he's our father, right? He's our ultimate father. He's the one that gives us our purpose. He gives us our calling. He gives us the goals that we want to go to. So if you're not a good son or a daughter, we cannot expect God to give us all that we've asked and all that we've been wanting and all that we've been created to do, right? So it's not about what you do. It's about who you serve. Who you serve. And just because you're not fulfilling a huge destiny in your life right now, you're not doing all these crazy things for Jesus, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It just means it's delayed. It means that a delayed dream is not a forgotten dream. A delayed dream is just delayed. It means you need time. You need time to mature. You need time with Jesus before he's going to allow those things to come full in your life. So when I was an intern, which was, I'm 30 now, so I feel old. But hold on. Think back. Hold on. I'm going to get water. Talk to yourselves. So when I was an intern, I was 18, all the way till I was 21 probably. I was an intern, so 3 years. But when I was an intern, man, I knew when I was 17, I felt God call me to youth ministry, and I was like, I'm going to be a youth pastor one day. That's what I'm going to do. That's my calling. That's my life, right? So I was 17, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And I turned 18, went into the internship, and I was like, man, I'm ready. I was so ready. No, I wasn't ready. No. I was prepared. No, I wasn't. Not even a little. I was so ready. I was so excited. I was like chomping at the bit. I was like, just give me a microphone. I want to preach. And like, I probably knew 4 scriptures in the Bible, right? And I was so ready. But I was so excited for what God was going to do. I was like, in my mind, I was ready. I was prepared. But the reality was, I was not. I was not mature in Christ. I did not have my relationship with Jesus where it needed to be, to where I could lead others. Right? I needed that time to mature, to focus. I needed that time to be with Jesus so that I could be ready to lead the people that I wanted to lead one day in life. You know, and that season of life for me, of me and Jesus, that season where it was just me and God for a while, was a forming season for me. It was such a good season because I just grew so much closer to God, and I was able to learn things about myself, and I was able to teach. God taught me things about myself, and God helped me dream bigger and helped me just stir things in my heart that I would not have gotten if I would have just rushed through that season and said, well, I know what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to go do it. God said, no, you're not ready. You need to take your time. You need to mature. You need to be better. You need to probably learn some scripture. I'm just kidding. No, I knew some, but probably not as much as I needed to know for sure. But if I did not focus on God, I would not be a great youth pastor. Like I couldn't do what God called me to do if I wasn't focused on that season, which was me and Jesus. And my season and my calling at that time was to be the best Jesus follower I could be. That was my season. And there's nothing wrong with that season. That's a great season to be in. It's a season of learning. It's a season of growth. It's a season where God can use you. So the second season is your family. That's a season I think sometimes we struggle with. If you lead your ministry well, but you don't lead your family well, then you've failed. You have failed. If your family is not a priority in your life, then you have failed. You know, I hope that as I move forward in ministry that I'm known as a great youth pastor, but more than that, I hope I'm known as a great mother. That my family is a priority and that my family serves the Lord. And that as I go into ministry and as I grow into ministry, that my family is going with me. And that they're not behind and I'm not focused on everybody else, that I forget about the people that I'm supposed to be serving on a daily basis. So many of us has dreams that are huge. Then we get married, we have kids, life happens, and we just stop, right? We're like, I've got a kid, I've got this, I really don't have time anymore for what I want. I feel like that's a disservice to your family. because your family should see you dream. Your family should see you think bigger things of Jesus. Your family should be like, man, my mom and dad, they want to do this and this and this and this. And I'm going to do this too one day and this and this. And so it's one of those things where we sometimes forget that, yes, we're parents. Yes, we have a family to take care of, but that doesn't mean God just forgot about you. That doesn't mean God just left you there. That means you are waiting. It's more creative. You bring your kids with you on your dream. You allow your kids to be a part of your dream. I would say too, Justin, he's back there. It's funny. So Justin's one of my youth leaders, and him and his wife, and Jamie leads worship for me sometimes for youth. He brings his girls with him every week to youth service. I have childcare now on Wednesday nights, but before I didn't. And I love it because I was like, you know what? I don't even care. He wants to be a youth leader, and his girls love youth service. Like they're 5 and 7, and they love it. Like they love youth service. It's like the highlight of their week. But I say that to say that Justin doesn't allow his family to say, you know what, he can't do something. He says, you know what, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to pursue my giftings. I'm going to pursue the kingdom of God. And my family just comes with me. And so it's important. And so having a family does not end the dream. It just changes it a little bit. And it becomes just creative. My best friend lives in Las Vegas, and her and I have talked a lot. And she's in a season where it's family is really the focus. And it's hard for her because she feels like she's supposed to be in ministry at this point. She's a really good voice. She's super anointed, man. The way she sings, it's just, God just moves. And she's a beautiful voice. And I tell her all the time, I said, God's going to use you. But she can't think that right now because right now she's kind of down because she feels like she's been forgotten. Because she's like, I'm just a mom. I take care of my kid, I do housework, I pay bills, and all I do is I'm just a mom. And I said to her one day, I said, you know what? That's the season you're in, but that's a blessed season. Because you have the opportunity to love your child like Christ loved your child. And that doesn't mean your dream's gone. That just means your dream gets a little more creative. That just means you have to work a little harder and you have to change things a little bit. That doesn't mean you just stop. And so she's just living through the fact that right now her dream's changed a little bit. Her dream's not as focused as she thought it was going to be. And so she just feels forgotten by God. And I keep telling her, I'm like, you know what? It's a season that you're in. God uses each season to further you and better and make you better. And your purpose will move. And each season doesn't mean it's bad. It means that it's a season. God can get you through each season, and you allow him to teach you what God wants to teach you, because God will teach you something in each season. He will show you things in each season if you allow him to. So if you're in this room and you're in a season of delayed dreams, putting your family first is not delaying a dream. It's part of your dream. It's part of your purpose, right? You know, your family first, it's not delaying anything. It's just bringing them apart. It's pulling them apart and making them a part of your purpose. We're going to go on to Genesis chapter 43, starting in 26. When Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present that they had with them and bowed down to him to the ground. And this is when Joseph's brothers, they don't know he's the king. They don't recognize him because he's older now. And so this is their brothers coming to get food from the famine. And he inquired about their welfare and said, "Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" They said, "Your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? God be gracious to you, my son." Then Joseph hurried out, for his compassion grew warm for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. And he entertained his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out and controlled himself and said, "Serve the food." They served him by himself and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews. For that is an abomination to the Egyptians. They sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in amazement. Portions were taken to them from Joseph's table, and Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. Guys, I look at this as Joseph, so this is Joseph. He started with this crazy dream. Then he ended up being sold into slavery, thrown into a pit. Then he ended up in prison, and now he's the king. And now he's hanging out. He's right hand of Pharaoh, and he's able to feed his family when they're starving to death, because there's a famine in the land. He's able to feed his family. So his family's coming to him, not having a clue that it's Joseph, right? Joseph could have chose to take that opportunity to say, "Well, suckers, you definitely, you messed with me, so now you get nothing," right? He could have, easily. And I feel like it would have been absolutely not No one would have been like, "You, what a jerk." No, it would have been like, well deserved. No, Joseph said, you know what? I'm taking care of my family. That's my priority. This is my season. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm taking care of my family. It doesn't matter what they did to me. It doesn't matter how wrong they've been to me. I'm taking care of my family. So Joseph made a decision to take care of his family despite what they did to him. Man, I feel like, I don't know if I would be that good of a person, but I hope I would be that good of a person. But I think about our lives, and we sometimes are so unkind to our own family. Sometimes I think we're the worst to the people that we love than to other people, than to strangers. And I think about that, and I think, man, we should change our perspective and realize that our priority is our family. That's part of our purpose. It's part of our calling. It's part of our season, is to take care of our family. Joseph understood his purpose at the moment and did what he was supposed to do because he knew it was part of the big picture. He knew it was part of the big picture at the end of the day. We're more terrible and hurtful, guys, to our families, and I really want to say, man, think about that sometimes when you talk to your families. Imagine this story and think, man, Joseph could have been so terrible to them. But he chose to be the bigger person, and he chose to say, you know what? I'm going to rise above, and I'm going to take care of the people that I love and that I'm supposed to take care of. The family that you're in, the season that you're in of family, it's not like your dreams aren't dead. It's just delayed. And your family gets to be a part of that dream, which is so cool. And then the third season, guys, is your calling, your career, your job, whatever that looks like for you, all right? I want you guys to think a little bit, because we're going to talk about this at the end, is what do you want to do in your life? Some of you may be living in your calling and your career. Some of you might be living and doing exactly what you're doing right now that you love. Some of you might be living and doing what you love. But some of you in this room maybe are like, you know what, I'm not doing what I love. I'm just working a job and I hate it. And that's okay. That's okay to feel that way. But I want you to imagine, like, what is that dream that you've always thought you've wanted and you've always had, but maybe you never thought it could happen? Like, what is it in your brain that you're like, you know what, this is what I really want to do? I want you to think about it. Don't tell me, just think about it. We're going to go to Genesis 45, starting in verse 1. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, "Make everyone go out from me." No one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near, and he said, "I am your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves, because you have sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there were yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to reserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it is not you who sent me here, but God. He has made a father to Pharaoh, the Lord of all of the house, and ruler over the land of Egypt." So Joseph finally saw his dream come to life. That dream he told his brothers, that, you know, you're going to bow before me. And I mean, it could sound kind of cocky, but it happened. That was what God told him, and so he did it. And the reality is that dream came into fruition. Excuse me. So to anyone who reads the story, you would think that Joseph arrived, right? He made it. He's good. Life's happy. He's at a point in his life where now he's living his passion. He's living his purpose. I look at my life right now, man, I'm honored and blessed to be able to live my purpose. I do. I get to live my purpose. I get to live my calling. I get to be a youth pastor, and I love it, every second of it. But I'm also just as honored to be a mom, to be able to start my family. Because I think of people that raise their families, and I'm like, man, that's also an honor. That's even bigger honor, because what I say and do from up here, that means nothing. It's how I live my life, and how I'm able to extend my life to my family and to the people that I love, and how I'm able to show Christ to others. This platform means nothing. I don't need a platform to show my love to Jesus. Like this, what I do does not make me who I am. Guys, I look at my family as an addition to my purpose. And when I'm put on this earth what I'm put on this earth to do is not better or any better than any of what you guys are supposed to do. It's our calling and purpose is what God's told us to be individually. I do not find fulfillment in my purpose. I find fulfillment in honoring God with my life. Okay? I mean, yes, I love what I do, but at the end of the day, if you love what you do more than you love God, then it's probably not a good place to be. And you should probably evaluate where you're at. There's a reason I put your calling, your career as kind of the last season, because First comes God, then comes your family, then comes your life and your career and your calling. Guys, if you allow your family and your relationship with God to go to crap, then don't expect your calling and your career to be as fruitful and as amazing as you thought it was going to be. Because God's called us to first be a believer to our families and to our friends before anything else. Some of you in this room may be thinking, you have a relationship with God, you have a great family, but you don't know what you're supposed to do. You're like, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? It doesn't matter how old you are. You can struggle with purpose your whole life. And it doesn't matter. It's not too late to find your purpose, because many of us bury our purposes and our callings and our giftings and what our dreams are because we're tired of waiting. We're tired of waiting, and it's all about our timetable, and we forget about God's timetable, right? Because his timetable is very different. Moses in the Bible had to wait 80 years for a promised land. God said, you're going to go into the promised land. 80 years later, it happened. How many of us are willing to wait 80 years for God's promise? Sometimes we can't wait 5 minutes for a hamburger at McDonald's. So I feel like 80 years would make everyone a little frustrated. So Moses, I feel like, has us all beat. He waited 80 years, and then God moved in his life in a crazy way. Guys, sometimes the bigger the purpose, the longer the waiting. So it's never too late to start doing what God's called you to do. And you never compare yourself to what somebody else is doing. I see so many people like, well, I want to do something big for God, but I want to be on a stage. Why? Why do you need to be on a stage to do something big for God? You can do something big for God by helping your neighbor with their lawn. You can do something big for God by taking food to a homeless person. You can do something big by God for giving of yourself to somebody else and showing Christ's love. You don't need a stage, you don't need a microphone, you don't need a platform to do something big for God. God can use you in whatever season, whatever area, and whatever place you're at in life, because your purpose is bigger than that. I'm going to share you guys a story. It's called Prospecting for Purpose. It's a good story. A frustrated young guy in his later high school years went to see a man known in his community as very wise. I don't know what to do with my life. How do I find my purpose? The young guy asked. Follow me, said the wise old man. Silently, they walked together to a nearby river where the wise man showed the young teenage guy dozens of people prospecting. They were panning for gold. There are 3 types of prospectors here, the wise man said. What do you mean? The young guy asked. There are people who strike gold straight away. Then there are others who pan day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And they know what there is gold somewhere in the river if they don't give up. So they just keep panning, looking for the gold through sunshine, through stormy weather, and nothing stops them. But what about the 3rd type, the young guy asked? You said there are 3 types of people. There are the people who get frustrated that they haven't found the gold they're looking for. So after a few days, or a few weeks, or a few years, they give up, walk away, never finding gold because they thought the search would be easy or quick. Confused, the young guy asked, what's this got to do with finding my purpose? The old age question, the old man smilingly responded. There are people in life who look for their purpose and seem to find it almost immediately. Even when they are very young, they have a clear sense of purpose and pursue those dreams with enthusiasm and heart. But some other people have to look harder, maybe for lots of years. Yet if they refuse to give up, they just keep looking. They'll eventually find something truly worth giving their life to. But what about the 3rd group? Who are they? Oh, son, the wise man said sadly, those are the people who want to know their purpose, but they become impatient and discouraged. They abandon the search, give up too soon, and return to a life of meaningless values of the society around them. But can everyone really find their own purpose? The young man continued to probe. Is there really gold in this river? There's always gold there, young man, if you have faith and keep following the map, and if you are willing to keep searching while many others walk away. The young guy thought long and hard and said, so tell me again, how do I find it? Very simple. Keep looking, and when you get tired, keep looking a little longer for your purpose. Isn't there a way to speed the process up? The young guy said impatiently. Son, there are no guarantees that you'll be able to find anything in life that is deeply worthwhile. Quickly, the only guarantee is that if you give up and stop searching, it's an absolute guarantee that you're never going to find it. The wise man saw that the young guy was beginning to get discouraged, so he said, and yes, I know that the journey for your purpose can sometimes be long, discouraging, and costly. Sometimes it takes years of prayerful trial and error, but just remember that sometimes one of your most important purposes in life is to continually and prayerfully look for your purpose. Oh, and there's one other thing that I forgot to mention, and one last thing the old guy said. Young man, as you're still looking for your purpose in life, let me remind you of this final thing. If you quit, you'll stand one day alone before the judgment seat of Christ up in heaven, and the good Lord will remind you of 4 words that will cut knives to your heart for the rest of eternity. There was silence for a minute. Finally, the young guy worked up enough courage to ask, "Sir," he said respectfully, "what would those 4 words be?" The wise man whispered, knowing the weight of his answer, "The 4 words, young man, will eternally be what could have been." Man, when I read this story, I thought to myself, it's so true. So many of us live life and walk through life and wanting purpose, and we give up because we're tired of waiting, because we don't want to keep searching, because we're impatient, because our prayers just aren't being answered. And God's saying, why are you giving up? Because I have something big and mighty for your life. Guys, our purpose in life, there's one purpose we all share, and that is to glorify God in everything we do. That is a purpose. So if you're like, I have no purpose, no, you do. You have a purpose, and that's to glorify God in everything that you do, in all of your life, in every season of your life. You glorify God with all that you do. That is your purpose. But all of us in this room probably have like dreams. We're like, you know what? I want to make an impact. I want to do something cool for Jesus. I want to make an impact on this generation, on this world, that it's not left the same way that I left it. And so your season is focusing on God. Your season is serving your family. Your season is in your calling, in your career. And then we get stuck sometimes in those little seasons, and we get stuck in those seasons and we stop searching. We stop searching for something bigger. If you guys want to stand, and the worship team can come back up as well. We're going to go into some worship. But you guys, we get stuck living in these situations and these circumstances and these seasons, and we're like, you know what, God, this is all you have for me. This is it. I'm going to go to my job that I hate. I'm going to live every day. I'm going to raise my family, and I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to pay my bills, and that's what I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. It's all I have time for, right? God's like, no. You have time for something more. You can allow yourself to dream bigger and let me do something cool in your life. But the reality is we serve a God that is kind, and he's not going to shove his way in there. If you don't want God to move in your life, God's not going to move in your life. You have to pursue it. You have to allow God to speak truth into your heart. And some of you in this room maybe have some buried dreams, some desires, some passions, some things that you're like, you know what, God, I just never saw it happen, so I don't need to see it happen. It's been so long that I've thought about that. It's just probably not going to happen. God's saying, reopen those dreams. Allow yourself to dream again. Because so many of us go through life meaningless, and we're like, God's like, why? Why do you have to live life meaningless when I have something so much bigger for you? I have such a heart for you. I have such a passion for you. And I want to see you do something great, but you have to want it just as bad. You have to want it just as bad. You can't stop searching. You can't allow yourself to forget, and you cannot allow yourself to stop praying for those dreams. We're going to sing a song called God of Miracles. And I love this song because it talks about faith beginning to rise. And I think so much that song when I was listening to it, I was like, man, God, allow our faith to rise so that our dreams get bigger. Allow our faith to rise so that we begin to dream for bigger things for our lives. I dream for bigger things for my life. I dream for bigger things for my family. I dream for bigger because I know that God is the God of miracles and that God can do it. So I really want to encourage you. The tables for communion will be open for you guys. If you want to take communion, get out of your chair. Come find a spot with God and talk to God about your dreams. Talk to God about maybe some things you buried deep in your heart that you haven't let anyone know about. Talk to God about those deep desires that you want, those deep dreams that you're like, God, I've had them for a long time. I've just forgotten about them. And I now want to remember them, and I want to give them back to you. Give God back your dreams and allow him to do something with them so that they're not just sitting in you dead. And God wants to use you and use your life in an amazing, crazy way. And so if you guys, I'm going to pray and then come down to the altar and begin just to live God up and begin to let your faith rise. And let your faith rise for your life. God, we just love you and we praise you, God. And I pray for each person in this room, God. And I pray that dreams, God, I pray for dreams to be reopened. I pray for dreams to be revisited. I pray for people in this room, God, to begin to dream bigger and bolder, God, and brighter, God, that they will begin to see, God, your purpose over their life, that in each season they've been through, God, that it's not in vain, but God, that you're going to use those seasons, God, to draw them closer to you, God. And I pray for each season and each season that each person in this room is in, and I pray that you begin to draw out the dreams, God, out of those seasons, that you begin to draw them out of their seasons and begin to put them focused on you, God, and that their faith, I pray, will begin to rise, God, and they'll begin to dream, God, for the things that you've called them to do, Lord. And we praise you and we give you honor, Lord, in your name.